In Pakistan, I feel that the major parties, you have PPP, you have PMLN, they are led by powerful families. The situation is hopeless. As liberals, we are optimists. Those people who are leaving the country, they are actually the ones you should rather try to keep. Even officially a democracy, but the democracy cannot deliver on basic needs. That's one of the major issues where Pakistan has been left behind. A lot of the media houses are not owned by publishers, but very often they are owned by industrialists who also have their own business interests. So we try to support the smallest minority which is in the world, which is the individual.
Assalamu alaikum ji, and welcome to another episode, a very special episode of Liberty Chalk. My name is Sayyid Ali Hassan. Today's episode will be completely in English because I have with me an international guest. I have with me Ms Birgit Lamm. She is the country director of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom. It's a Germany-based organization. We'll be talking about some of the things that they have been doing here in Pakistan in the past. About 40 years they've been working here, working with different civil society organizations as well as the government on a number of issues. The Friedrich Naumann Foundation sadly will be winding up operations this year. And let's start off with that, Ms Lamm. So 40 years in Pakistan, when you talk about winding up such a long investment of time and money also, Friedrich Naumann Foundation has put in a lot of money working in Pakistan. How does it feel like now wrapping up operations in Pakistan, and why has it come to this point?
Assalamu alaikum to all of you, first of all, and thank you for having me. It's always a great pleasure to work with Prime, and obviously Prime has been also one of our long-standing partners. Yeah, obviously winding up operations after nearly 40 years. FNF started working in Pakistan in 1986. Personally for me, it's a very sad experience. I came to Pakistan in July 2019, so it's been nearly 6 years for me as well. And it's been part of my life, and I've made friendships here, and it's obviously hard to leave. We've all been aware that global political patterns have been changing over the last years, and also dramatically, and just seeing the disruption that has now come through the new US administration. This is something that also our board of directors had to react to. And last year in July, our board had to take the strategic decision to actually consolidate and also reduce our structures, and has decided to wind down operations in the whole of South Asia.
All right.
So this is not only related to Pakistan, but also the offices in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, and here in Pakistan sadly have to close. The India office will be downscaled from a regional office to a country office, but also offices in Myanmar, in Central Asia, in Egypt, and also the Madrid office will be closed down, and we have to find new structures because funds are required at home.
Right.
There are disruptions in the Middle East. There's the Ukraine war going on. So there's a need also for Europeans to focus and get more active within their own neighborhood.
Right.
So this is unfortunately a strategic decision that I took.
So a lot of people wouldn't know what the Friedrich Naumann Foundation stands for, what is the origins of this organization. Now, can you tell me a little bit about what are political foundations that are coming out from Germany? There are several political foundations that are working in Pakistan or have been working in Pakistan in the past, and they originate from Germany. How does that system work? Tell me about that.
Well, that's actually a pretty unique system. It was developed in Germany after World War II, so in the Federal Republic of Germany. Friedrich Naumann Foundation was founded in Germany in 1958. And it's basically a political foundation that is affiliated to a political party in Germany.
What is it?
Free Democratic Party, FDP, and all the other political parties that have representations in our national parliament, the Bundestag, for 2 successive periods in a row, can start such a foundation that enjoys a certain specific framework. because the original idea of the founding fathers of the Federal Republic of Germany after that terrible experience of the Nazi dictatorship was we wanted to create a platform where German citizens can actually develop a sense of how to live democracy, how to enshrine democratic values in their own everyday life, and also create a platform for debate of current affairs. And this is still what we are doing until today in Germany. And we have extended this structure also to the international scale. So also the CDU, the Conservative Party, or the Social Democrats have their own, the Friedrich Foundation, which is also present here in Pakistan as well. So they all have these parties, but we all share the same democratic basis.
I understand. So, but let's talk a little bit about this. We know, as Pakistanis, you know that there are conservative parties in the world, there are liberal parties in the world. What does the Freedom Democratic Party stand for, and what are their values? How are they different from the others?
Well, actually, we belong to the classic liberal group of parties, but not meaning liberal like we promote women wearing spaghetti tops and going like all over the place. Actually, what we promote is empowered citizens that can actually shape their own lives and also take responsibility for it.
Right.
So we focus very much on the responsibility and the freedom of the individual. But it's always both things. So if you're free to take your own decisions, you also have to assume the responsibility for it. And that also reflects in our work. That means, for example, if you feel you want to empower people to take their own lives into their hands, that's also how we work here in Pakistan. We always work very closely with the local partner organizations, and we empower them. We empower them with training, with dialogue opportunities, also with joint activities, but we would never classify ourselves as a classic donor agency. This is not how we work, and we always work on a long-term basis. So with Prime, as with other organizations, we've had a long partnership history that in certain cases extends over 10 to 20 years. And we want to see these organizations get stronger, professionalize them, get also innovation from them, and integrate them into a larger network.
All right, so maybe if you could elaborate on the differences between the Freedom Democratic Party and the other parties' positions, maybe some important differences between important issues that you might diverge from the Conservatives, for example.
Sure. Our Liberal Party, as opposed to the Conservative Party, is always very particular about what is the role of government in a society. That's one of the major issues. So we would always focus on the state as giving a sound rule of law framework within which citizens and social actors can actually, among themselves, level and negotiate their own interests, while the Conservatives would rather focus on a strong state in terms of being like more supervisory and telling people what to do.
Like a nanny state.
A bit more of not in a nanny state in terms of giving too much social welfare, but they would rather want the state,
to have a more authoritarian?
Of an authority. I wouldn't even in the German say it's authoritarian, but more of a supervisory role, and give like law and order would be their subject, while liberals would say we want a lean state. We want a strong state in the sense that it protects the rules of the game where people can organize themselves, while Conservatives would rather focus also on a more interventionist state that actually tells people what to do.
Right. So that's interesting because the conservatives in the United States, for example, are usually when their positions are towards the free market. Is it the same in Germany as well? Do the conservatives in Germany support free markets, or do they support a form of free market system which is maybe closer towards China, where there's a greater involvement of the state?
Well, I would never call any conservative in Europe or like similar to what the Chinese do. I mean, what the Chinese do is basically state-run capitalism. I think conservatives and liberals alike, we try to promote entrepreneurship because this is the basis of wealth creation. But we as liberals would always focus on the market to actually sort out issues. So we would always believe we would need to have lower taxes. We would need to have very simple bureaucracy. We would not favor barriers to trade because we want free access also of all people who want to engage in the market. Don't erect barriers in terms of tariffs, what Donald Trump is now doing. I don't want steel from Canada. I don't want this from the EU. But in the end, if you raise tariffs, it's not the countries, it's your own citizens who in the end have to pay more for the end product. So in the end, you punish consumers. And I think we want to protect individual citizens and want them to pay less for a good product. So in that respect, we want a functioning market where everybody can actually participate and there are no hurdles. And in a lot of conservative environments, they would maybe protect certain industries or national industries and say, no, we need like maybe tax privileges for certain industries.
Right. Well, I'll ask you a tricky question. I'll ask you a tricky question this time. You've had experience working with all of the different major political parties in Pakistan. How would you classify these different parties? Do you think that there is a conservative and a liberal and a classical liberal base in Pakistan as well? Who is what?
I mean, I've seen and met lots of people, amazing people who really also adhere to ideas of entrepreneurship and rule of law. But I would never classify the Pakistani parties in the way the system works in European countries.
Right.
In Europe, our parties have been developed through the industrialization and basically were developed with the target groups of certain social or economic actors, like the Social Democrats were very much aligned with the trade unions and with the industrial workers, which are also now, let's say, it's a strata of society which is now also diversifying and not that much powerful anymore. And this is also why the party now has some issues with their support base. And the conservatives rather come from support like small family businesses, like middle-class people.
Maybe religious values as well?
Yeah, but that doesn't play such a role in Europe anymore. But here in Pakistan, I feel that the major parties, you have PPP, you have PMLN, they are led by powerful families.
Well, the People's Party has, I think, deep roots in the labor unions in Pakistan. I think generally, if you do a left-right differentiation between parties, People's Party would generally be leaning towards the left, as we have traditionally understood it. And maybe the Pakistan Muslim League would be traditionally leaning towards the right or towards the center-right. Maybe the PTI also in the same way?
Well, there would be, obviously the PPP in its program is generally seen as more left-leaning with social welfare programs as well. PMLN coming from Punjab and supporting the business community in Punjab as well. So there's a regional basis and there's also like a different basis in the social strata. But there's also this very specific feature that there's like a dominant family that's actually leading the party. And it will all be centered around either the Sharifs or it's the Bhutto Zardaris.
And you think that is problematic?
It's different. I mean, it shows a lot also like what the society in Pakistan is about. I mean, the really core functioning group here in society is the family.
Right.
So this is the authority, that's your support network. So in a way, on a political level, it also reflects the social structure of Pakistan.
I tell you, like, I think Pakistan is greatly influenced by ideas from two regions of the world. One is the United States. Of course, there's a traditional relationship, but also then there's Europe. And this is an older, more related to, for example, Allama Iqbal went to Germany. He studied there. He's deeply influenced by German intellectuals. German intellectuals have had a great influence on philosophical thought, on the law, for example, and greatly a lot of the literature in the social sciences comes from Germany as well. I am a fellow of the International Academy of Freedom, which is something that the Friedrich Naumann Foundation runs. And I felt that the Friedrich Naumann Foundation essentially works to build capacity, especially a capacity in people to address new challenges in policy making. Now, what do you think about the legal and public infrastructure within Pakistan? For example, what do you think about the systems that are in play? Because we have a very elaborate bureaucracy, but I don't think it is very effective. And as far as the public is concerned, they're concerned about issues like corruption, about public service delivery. What are your impressions of Pakistan's bureaucracy and the systems that are in place, especially the infrastructure?
Well, first of all, Pakistan is a big country. So it's the fifth most populous in the world, 242 million people. So obviously, in order to take place of such a huge country, you would need an elaborate administrative body as well. But Pakistan has quite a large public sector. The issue is actually how you align them and what are the interfaces and are the interfaces working. Yeah. And when I came there in 2019, there was already quite a lot of discussion about the relationship of the national level and the provinces.
Right.
And I've always seen that debate about the 18th Amendment.
Yeah, this is when all the discussions about the National Finance Commission were happening, and you guys were involved there as well.
Yeah. I mean, also coming from a German background, and especially as liberals, since we want to empower people to take their own decisions, we would always say, please take the decisions at the lowest possible level, closest to the people who are concerned, because they know best what they need.
Right.
If in a local community they need a river, they need a new school, this is what the villagers or the town people and even the mayor of that town knows much better than someone far away in the provincial capital or even on the national level. So please empower these people. But at the same time, empowerment also needs to go with responsibility, and you need to also bring it with checks and balances and supervision, and you need to have transparency in it. And I think this is the part where probably the 18th Amendment was not thought through to the last moment, because I've seen lots of public officials who are also struggling because information is not available.
Right.
Different agencies work in silos, or the finances are not available, or this kind of thing. Do you feel this is where Pakistan would need to get more efficient?
Do you feel that the bureaucracy is hungry for more power, and is it hungry for more resources? Do you think we are a country that has a culture of wanting an expansionary government?
Well, I think every bureaucracy in the world, this is like the nature of every big administration, every organization will always continue to exist. And when there is one task which is eradicated, they will find a new one to prove their existence.
Right.
This is a natural thing. So, I think in that way you would probably need some strong political will in the respective decision-making quarters. to actually bring about a certain change. But in the end, I think it's inevitable because everywhere there's a crunch of funds, and also, I mean, your citizens demand service delivery.
Right.
And in the end, whether you are a democracy or not, every political system, its legitimacy will be tested by the citizens, whether it can serve a purpose. And when you have even officially a democracy, but the democracy cannot deliver on basic needs, education, healthcare, infrastructure, communication, and provide, let's say, also certain sense of basic security, then the legitimacy of the system will be put into question by the citizens. And this is what we see everywhere in the world. And if this, let's say, segment of society that raises questions and doubts the legitimacy of a system gets bigger, then you're going to have a problem for the state that can even be life-threatening for this political system. So this is where I think every political stakeholder would seriously start thinking.
All right. Again, tricky question. But what do you think is Pakistan's greatest threat? And if you're going to say people, then what is the other second greatest strength that Pakistan has?
I would say is the resilience of its people and the young population, because young people are by nature curious, they are innovative, and they want to try out new things. And they're also entrepreneurial in a way. I mean, everybody here has to do something, and even in the informal sector, everybody is an entrepreneur somehow. So I feel if you find a way to unleash this potential and give opportunities to the youngsters, but starting also with giving them skills and education.
Of course.
This could really be an amazing boost for them.
Right. But I meant, apart from people, institutions, when it comes to institutions, when it comes to maybe natural endowments, do you think Pakistan has any strengths that really shine out?
Well, Pakistan obviously has an amazing natural environment,
right.
Which could be, if smartly used, also could be
a tourist destination.
It could be a tourist destination, but obviously infrastructure, like the whole environment as such, would need to be done. And obviously its location between the Middle East and Asia and along the maritime trading routes. I mean, this could be an amazing potential. I mean, if Karachi is perfectly situated at the brink of the Persian Gulf and the Arabic Sea to play a major role in international trade, if the overall setup is done properly.
All right, and weaknesses. What do you think is Pakistan's greatest weakness? Is it the government?
Well, again, I would say there's a whole combination of things. For me, I think it's in a way over-regulation and also a general fear of controlling things too much.
So authoritarianism, right?
Yeah, to a certain degree, but I wouldn't only put it on the government level, because again, it also reflects and trickles down to social fabric.
So it permeates into the culture.
It's like also a cultural thing that you see reflected in politics as well. But if you try to control too much what people can do and think, obviously you kill creativity and you lose a lot of spontaneity and innovation potential that is there. And you have amazing people. Look at the NICs. Look at some of the most amazing young entrepreneurs that have come out. There is potential for people. And I mean, Pakistanis going abroad, they thrive.
Well, they do, but it seems like you mentioned the NICs, but to me it seems like the NICs are here to incubate businesses for Dubai and for Riyadh, because everybody who they start off here and then they go somewhere else to work, because it's impossible to work in this country. But you mentioned over-regulation, and you mentioned that there's a tendency towards controlling things. I think Prime agrees with the Friedrich Naumann Foundation that this seems to be one of the greatest threats to the Pakistani people is a government that thinks that it needs to get involved in everything, and that a government that seeks to control everything. So I've been to one of your conferences where you highlighted that even Muhammad Ali Jinnah was a person who belonged to the liberal tradition, and in the UK he was part of the liberal club. Do you think that those values have somehow been lost in the evolution of Pakistan, and do you think there's some way to reclaim them?
I think Jinnah's vision of Pakistan is still very valid, and it remains like a future vision. Unfortunately, I think his vision has never been fully or to a large extent been implemented. Mm-hmm. Even shortly after his death, I think a lot of his ideas and hopes were maybe not even shared properly by his fellows, because political maybe tracks took a different direction.
That's right.
No, I think he was hoping to build a state, obviously a homestead for Muslims, as he said, but in a way a state which is secular in a way that it gives also non-Muslims and people a respectable way of shaping their own lives as respectable and ethical citizens. Right. And I think in that respect, this is a very valid point, and it has been very much in line with modern statehood.
Right.
But I think you're still on, like everybody, also on the way of realizing it. And obviously you have steps back. You have steps forward, and every generation needs to find out and define what do these values actually mean in the current situation that you have.
I see. And so let's talk about the economy now. I think Prime's main concern also around the economy. So Pakistan has been dealing with problems related to overregulation. In your opinion, and Germany is a manufacturing hub of Europe and of the world as well. But Pakistan has exorbitant electricity costs. You are aware of this. We don't seem to be moving towards being in any position whatsoever to be a manufacturing hub. Our strengths maybe lie within agriculture or within the services sector, or even financial and more technological services. What is your opinion on the government policy of Pakistan presently? Because, let's mark this as one important chapter in Pakistan's history. Do you think that the government has the right priorities there to continue to talk about manufacturing as a growth sector? But nothing is done about the electricity side. And I know Germany has also struggled with electricity problems of its own, where there has been a distorted market because maybe the induction of renewables was not done in the way that it should have been done. So talk about that a little bit. Do you think about what should be the direction of the economy?
Well, I mean, Germany at least has the huge advantage of being part of the European Union. So we do not only have a national market, but we have a very good regional integration. And South Asia is actually one of the least integrated regions in the world.
I see.
Much less than Southeast Asia or any of the other regions. And I mean, you're right, energy is a strategic cross-cutting sector. Every other industry needs energy, so energy production is an issue. And I think in that respect, Pakistan has struggled in the past with an insufficient grid, not properly efficient or properly
it's not
maintained.
Yeah, it's expensive also.
It's also expensive, and the whole structure of the energy suppliers is problematic. And I mean, more than 50% of your energy is actually imported.
Yeah.
Mainly it's carbon-based fuels that come from the Gulf states.
Correct.
And if you have to buy them at market rates, especially if market prices go up, then you start having a problem here. And at the same time, this is also some studies that Prime has done in cooperation with FNF, working on the trade potential that Pakistan has. And in these studies, we found out that over the last 20 years, Pakistan has not managed to diversify its trade basket and has not managed to move up in the value chain production. Whereas other people like or other countries like Bangladesh, they managed to do that.
Yeah.
So while trade and products diversify, I mean, the real value creation is not in producing raw materials, but actually in the manufacturing and further development of products that come out of the basic products.
Of course.
And if you're still stuck with the same quality and with the same products that you had 20 years ago, you're not going to move forward.
Right.
And I think that's one of the major issues where Pakistan has actually has been left behind. And
Let me ask you a question. So the government of Pakistan, we know that we need carbon fuels to keep the grid running. We do have access to hydropower and we have access to nuclear, which are generally cleaner fuels, it can be argued. And then we also have access to other forms of electricity generation. But we need carbon fuel to run the country for, 365 days a year, 24/7. Solar is not available at night. Wind power is not available at certain times of the year. And hydropower is also not available for 6 months or so. However, the government of Pakistan has not really done much in terms of oil exploration in the country and has not really developed carbon-based fuels in the country as well. I know some of it has to do with external pressure also that, European countries and maybe the United States also believes or used to believe that we should move towards a cleaner grid. But now the government of Pakistan is investing in oil exploration and a lot more seriously. It has identified it as the only area where Pakistan needs to go into import substitution. It needs to mine its own oil and it needs to mine its own coal, and it needs to start using these fuels to fuel the grid. So what do you think about this kind of option? Do you think this is too late now and that we actually are past a point we do need to move towards a renewable energy grid, or these need to be worked on and this is a step in the right direction?
I suppose you would need a multi-pronged approach, but I mean, if you just look at the current crisis for air quality that we had here in Punjab and also in Islamabad, I've never seen anything as bad as what we've had over the last year, and everybody was really choking with it. Then I think fossil fuels might not in every kind be the proper option. I mean, Pakistan has an abundance of sunshine. And I mean, also in the big cities, those people who can invest in it have put solar panels on their rooftops. We've done the same in FNF, and we run all our office energy need, including the ACs in the summer. We all run it on our own solar panels. The issue is the storage. We've got proper batteries with it. So even at night or when the day is cloudy, we can still use our solar energy. And I think it's also a question of effectiveness. I agree that big industrial factories might not be able to run their full operations on solar, but in a private or in an office environment, it's perfectly possible. And I think it's available. It's free of charge. The sun is there. So I think a proper way of addressing renewables and finding a reasonable way of combining it with the fossil fuels and also modernizing the grid, because the grid is also fragile in certain ways, or there's a lot of inefficiency or there's
a lot of loss.
There's a lot of loss that would needs to be fixed, but there also has to be like a different cost calculation around it. I remember last year we had suddenly started having a discussion here that the government wanted to discourage private households from installing solar panels.
Yeah, they're even talking about it right now.
And because they felt like, oh, if too many people go solar, we are not able to cover the infrastructural costs that our inefficient energy grid has if we lose all the customers. So actually, it's also like a market. The customers feel the grid is not serving their purpose. There's load shedding. It's too expensive. So they come up with a solution of their own, which had never been, let's say, encouraged or subsidized by the government. So you have the solar panels, and now public entities find it difficult to actually cover the costs. The discussion about banning or making it difficult for people to put solar up on their roofs, this is like the easiest way for a legislator, because you can make a law, it doesn't cost you anything, and people have to comply with it. But again, it reduces income and it reduces efficiency within the system, and it takes away a certain part of the income of your population. Right. Economically, it's not really a good future step. So in the end, you're still having the same problems. You're just like trying to mend a little hole, but the problem as such is not solved. In the end, you would need to find a way of getting an effective energy policy on board. And with a large country, with a lot of local communities, I mean, I know in a village somewhere in KP or up in Gilgit-Baltistan, nobody will dig a hole and put a cable from Gilgit-Baltistan to Shimshal, because it's just not feasible for like a few hundred families that live there. So for them, it makes sense to have a local solution and maybe have local solar panels. And then the school has daylight, and the families can also cover their need. So it does make a lot of sense, also where the government cannot provide the utility as such.
Absolutely. I think when it comes to the more far-flung areas of Pakistan, and there are lots, Balochistan is very sparsely populated, so is interior Sindh, and so are many parts of Gilgit-Baltistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. It just makes sense to have these technologies and be implemented in the correct way. So people have invested a lot of money in solar. But now Pakistan is also looking for foreign investments, and we have this Special Investment Facilitation Council that is there to support these activities. Now, what do you think are policies or cultures or traditions or institutions within Pakistan that are hampering investment, and how can they be overcome?
Well, actually, I think Pakistan would need to get investment into the country, whether it's foreign or it's local.
Right.
You need to have people who feel like they would like to put their earned money here and they get return on investment. But actually what we are seeing is rather the opposite. There are quite a few investors or big companies, also international companies in the telecommunication sector or in the shipping sector like DHL, who have actually sold their business and are moving out of Pakistan. And looking also at the last year, with due respect, we had huge issues with connectivity, with internet availability. And when you're not even able to make an online bank transfer anymore, and your business operations are hampered on such a basic way, and again, the energy issue as well. These are strategic cross-sectoral industries. And if you cannot provide like these basic features like communication, energy, and a sound legal framework around business operations, people will go out.
Right.
And also the tax system has to be transparent and easy to follow. And these are like some of the basic issues. If you cannot provide that, investment, whether it's local or whether it's international, is not going to come. And investment is one of the shyest animals in the world. It goes out like anything, and it's already leaving. And with due respect, coming back to the basket of trade goods that Pakistan has right now, Pakistan doesn't really have a competitive advantage in any product that is so necessary and nobody else has, that people would come here. I mean, basically, what Pakistan is selling internationally, this is textiles, it's like surgical instruments, and it's leather goods. But this is what you can easily find anywhere else as well. So what Pakistan only competitive advantage at the moment is the price of its goods, but cannot really create wealth for a growing population, because you have a demographic growth of 2.5%. So that's huge. It's one of the biggest in South Asia and in the world as well. So how are you going to feed and maintain a growing population? You need to create wealth that can actually sustain them. But in this way, I think it'll be very difficult to do it.
What about visa policy? What do you think about Pakistan's visa policy and its attitude towards foreigners?
Well, Pakistan, unfortunately, I would say in many ways, in its economic development as well, and also, let's say, the administrative way has had bureaucratic hurdles. But I mean, there's also currently not a lot of attraction why business people, for example, should come to Pakistan.
Is internal security also an issue, you think?
Internal security, I think it's more an issue for the locals themselves, especially in the specific areas. I mean, there have been issues specifically in the western parts of the country, and there have been concerns with larger infrastructure projects and the security of these issues. And obviously for the stakeholders, this is an issue which I'm sure they are discussing among themselves as well. I think it's a package in general. If the market does not hold, let's say, promises of reasonable revenues, you grapple with the energy issues that we've talked about, connectivity issues that we've talked about. And at the same time, this is what you also very often hear from business representatives is also you have a young labor force which is desperately looking for work, but the issue of skilled labor is an issue. So this in itself,
it seems like Pakistan has plenty of skilled labor. It just seems to want to work in other countries.
Yeah, I mean, the people who are leaving this country are obviously actually, but this is with every country where you have a lot of emigration. Those people who are leaving the country, they are actually the ones you should rather try to keep, because they are the most enterprising. They're the ones that are willing to take risks, and they are the ones who are willing to get out of their comfort zone to actually have success and make it somewhere in life. But I mean, in general, you see, and this is also something that studies show you, unfortunately, on a broader base, the education system is not delivering like a good, well-skilled labor force that would be very effective in skilled industrial or economic.
Well, there's no industrial jobs either, so the point of.
I mean, it's like communicating things.
Right.
You don't have the industry, and if you wanted to build the industry, you wouldn't have the skilled workers. You would need to start training schemes to actually get the workforce you need for it. But if you're an investor and you want to put money somewhere, I mean, you also have like time spans you need to work in. And I think in that respect, unfortunately, Pakistan right now doesn't really have a pretty good position. Although, I mean, it does have young people who want to work. You have outstanding, skilled people, they go abroad. And
people.
And a lot of creative young entrepreneurs that we've also supported, who also within Pakistan are doing amazing work and working as role models. So I would never say the situation is hopeless. As liberals, we are optimists.
All
We
right.
always believe that people, if they take the correct decisions, they can actually thrive and be successful.
Why do you support low taxes and flat taxes? We have done a study about this by Prime and Friedrich Naumann Foundation, and a lot of people are surprised that a German foundation would support work that advocates for a flat taxation system instead of a progressive taxation system, which seems to be the norm in Europe. So can you talk a little bit about that? Why is low flat taxation superior to progressive higher taxation?
I mean, the tax system is always a huge issue about, it depends on what you actually want to achieve. But a tax system should be an incentive to actually be more productive. And it shouldn't punish the people who are more productive. Because if you have higher revenue, that also means more investment. You might broaden your business. Or if you are a normal family, you have a higher income. So you will also consume more.
Yeah.
And if you consume more, obviously you will ask for more services or products that others produce.
Right.
So in the end, with doing this and increasing household income, in the end you also increase again public tax revenue, even if you are on a lower base, but your overall tax base will be bigger because prosperity increases. And in that way, I think the best thing that any government can do is actually encourage its citizens to be productive and be as productive and as effective as possible. And we believe that a low tax system, low tax rates, and a tax system which is also easy enough for citizens to be understood will actually boost productivity and will also motivate people. I mean, nobody likes paying taxes.
Right.
But we all acknowledge that taxes are a necessary evil that we have to pay if the service delivery is there.
Right.
Yeah, so if you get good roads, you get infrastructure, you get hospitals, you get good schools, people will say, okay, I don't like these 10, 15, 20% that's taken off my gross salary, but I see I benefit from it.
Right.
But in general, we believe every state should create an environment where their citizens can be as productive as possible and have the highest family income that's possible.
Interesting. Let's talk about another tricky question. So one of the most discussed things in the world, and Europe is very sensitive to these issues, is the LGBTQ plus community. And can you tell me a little bit of about what is the difference between the classical liberal stance on these issues and the liberal stance on these issues? Are they very similar, or do you think that the classical liberals maybe are like differentiated from the liberals in that way, that they might not want extensive social programs that are working to ensure these rights to LGBTQ plus?
Well, anyway, we feel we are promoting individual freedom and responsibility. So first of all, there shouldn't be any distinction between someone who's LGBT plus or who is whatever sexual orientation. That should be, in our view, a private affair.
Right.
You should be empowered as a person and as an individual because you're a human being.
Right.
And you shouldn't be put at a disadvantage because you're not married, or you don't want to marry, or you have this or that preference. It's a responsibility among the people.
Right.
And as long as you do not harm others and you're respectful of others, there shouldn't be any intervention by the state on any means. So what we feel, whether it's for this community or whether it's for ethnic minorities or religious
minorities.
There should be awareness-raising campaigns that minorities should be respected as being human beings.
Right.
I mean, there's always a moment when you or me, we will be a minority. I'm very often, as the only Gori in the room, I'll be a minority. So we try to support the smallest minority which is in the world, which is the individual.
Right.
And I mean, you come somewhere, you go to Karachi, you might be the only Islamabadian. You go somewhere, you might be the only Pakistani, or you're the only member of your family who's there. Do you want to be discriminated against because you belong to a certain family, because you belong to a certain region, you speak Punjabi or you speak Saraiki or whatever? So I feel the essence why we also support minority rights is because we support the smallest minority, which is the individual. And in the end, if a group starts discriminating against a specific group of people, in the end, it can also easily swap. Today, it might be this group. Maybe tomorrow it's an ethnic group.
Well, but that said, do you support affirmative action programs?
That's a difficult question. Also among liberals, I would always, affirmative action programs can, on the other hand, also be discriminatory against other groups. I've had that discussion a lot when it comes to female empowerment, and very often you have like quotas saying 30% of your workforce have to be women, or if you have applicants for a job, formally, let's say, equal qualification, you have to give preference to the lady, which gives a lot of frustration then for someone else who's male, has the similar one, so just says like, we have the same formal qualification. I don't even need to apply for the job because the lady will be given preference. In order to actually give visibility to a certain group of people or a certain minority like women or maybe minorities, first of all, you also need to bring them in certain numbers into a certain work field, a certain environment. And you have always like a glass ceiling, and you have social norms that actually exclude them. I mean, we know how that works, and you try to break that glass ceiling. But I always feel affirmative action should never be a long-term project. Like what we've seen in Bangladesh with Sheikh Hasina, who wanted to give preference in the social sector.
But also in Germany, right? There's some kind of affirmative action also on the part of West German, traditionally West German to East Germany. I think to some extent there is some understanding that East Germany has to be taken care of.
After decades of a unified Germany, this is also coming to an end. But it's also debated. But once you've introduced affirmative action, you've given a certain privilege to a certain group of people. It's also very hard to take it back.
Right, exactly.
That's also a difficult issue. But definitely, I do agree if you identify that there are, let's say, discrimination practices in your society which are undesirable and which prevent people from developing their own potential, then you should do something about it. You should empower these people. You should raise awareness about the situation and make the environment more receptive towards these issues and try to overcome them. If for a certain period of time you would need certain affirmative actions, it depends on the situation, but it should never be a permanent thing. You should always be sure to actually terminate it.
Well, another thing I want to talk about is social welfare programs, right? So Germany generally is big on educational programs, and healthcare as well. But in Pakistan, especially working with the IMF, working with the World Bank, one thing seems to have maybe a single direct cash transfer is maybe the best way to provide social welfare. In your opinion, as a classical liberal, what do you think about the Benazir Income Support Program as a mechanism to replace all other social welfare? And what would you like to see in Pakistan's social safety net and social welfare infrastructure?
I mean, at least coming from a European background, we are very grateful that we have social welfare systems that help you when you're in a situation of need, like you're sick or you're unemployed and you lose your job, and for a certain period of time until you find a new job, you would get unemployment benefit, but it means you have yourself before that contributed to the unemployment security system.
Right.
So it works like an insurance contribution based. And this obviously does help you. On the other hand, there's also in Europe a big debate whether if you overdo it, this might also reduce, let's say, people's willingness to stand on their own feet. Obviously, here in Pakistan, the need is big, and this is a completely different situation. But also within the context of countries which are developing, I mean, social backup should be there because there are loads of people, especially in the healthcare sector as well, who would not be able to actually sustain themselves in times of need because the family income is quite low, and you would need to have some support in place. But the thing which I've seen also in other contexts, for example, in Brazil, there's a very famous program which was called Bolsa Familia, which was introduced by then President and now President Lula. He introduced a very successful program which was also based on individual contribution, but it was combined with a necessity to get qualification, and it was like time bound. I think if you just have general income substitution programs that just tell you, okay, you will receive this amount of money,
Right.
This will help a person for a month and it will buy a meal. This is already something for this person. It makes a huge difference, no doubt about that. But what happens if the state cannot afford this contribution anymore? As soon as you withdraw the money, this person or the family will fall back into the same state of need and necessity it had before. So in a way, as a public agency, you will be forced to continue this program indefinitely, practically. Once you have introduced it, you're in no position to withdraw it. Otherwise, you create incredible hardships for the people who are beneficiaries. So actually, you should always, I think, combine for the beneficiary group such a contribution with skills development, training facilities, or trying to put them into a situation and into gainful employment that they can actually sustain themselves.
Right.
Obviously, if you talk about sick people or you talk about handicapped people, this is like on a different level. But if you talk about normal, healthy adults, families, I think you should always have a target in trying to develop and help these families or these individuals develop in a way that they can walk on their own feet and that there is a moment when they don't need this contribution anymore.
All right.
Because otherwise you are stuck.
Yeah.
And your social welfare payment will go up and up and up, and there is no way actually stop it if you don't want to cause social unrest in the country.
What would you say about with every year, with every passing budget, the government does increase the minimum wage? What is your opinion on that? Do you think like the minimum wage should be perpetually increased, or should there be a cap on it that should be sustained for a while? Because we know the inflation is increasing, but at the same time, technology is also improving and efficiency is also coming into play. So, do you think that increasing the minimum wage is a good idea?
Well, actually, as liberals, we do have a very critical view towards minimum wages anywhere, also in Europe and in certain industries, also in Germany. These kind of minimum wages are in place. But you also have to see that the wage is also it's a factor in the market, which is also a product of demand and supply.
Right.
Yeah, it's a combination of your skills. It's what the laborers offer and what is in demand by companies.
So it's the price of labor.
The price of labor, basically. So if the minimum wage is very low, then you will find that practically nobody in the market will actually work for the minimum wage. And naturally, it doesn't really have any effect because anyone is working for more anyway, because in this skill set, maybe labor is in short demand and people can demand more. So economically or on a macroeconomic level, then it doesn't have any impact. But the problem starts when the officially set minimum wage actually doesn't reflect the productivity of the labor force. And then you start to have an issue that companies, for example, do not want to hire workers for this wage because the effectiveness that these workers have, they cannot sort of integrate these costs into the final market product. So in the end, what you will find then, if the minimum wage is set too high, is actually that you have a black labor market and a lot of informal labor constructions. And in the end, it doesn't help the people it's supposed to protect, because companies and individuals will not hire anyone for this wage. So you will get the informal and the black market.
Well, also, I think when it comes to the lowest paid workers in society, they're probably workers that don't work for organizations, but they work for individuals or families. So in Pakistan, there's a large sector of home-based services like housekeepers and cleaners, who then would also be operating outside of the formal economy. They'd be operating in the black economy because their wages do not match the minimum wage standards that the government has set. You worked with the media also in Pakistan, and in Islamabad there is plenty of news media. What is your opinion on the state of news media in Pakistan? More recently, there has been a lot of talk about clamping down on media voices and stopping them from reporting on certain matters or taking certain positions. That said, at the same time, we've seen that the social media phenomenon has taken a life of its own and has at times caused great civil unrest and instability in the country as well, and has brought institutions to the brink of collapse at certain points in time. I think last 3-4 years we saw some of that in play. What is your opinion on the Pakistani media? What do you think is the right way to regulate social media and mainstream media?
Well, obviously the issue of media regulation, also the issue of responsibility of those who consume media, but also those obviously who produce news. This is, I think, an issue of concern everywhere in the world. And there needs to be a proper framework for both, I would say. But there has to be also like a proper mediation and resolution channel. So, for example, transparent judiciary, if you don't agree on certain issues or you think someone overstepped the boundary, obviously the normal thing would be you go to court, you sort it out, and then you have a decision.
If it's a Pakistani court, it's going to take the next 20 to 25 years to sort it out.
Well, I say it's always like an interplay of different institutions, right? So you need a regulatory framework when it comes to frequencies, licenses, these kind of things. When you talk about silencing certain voices, that has been a discussion over the past.
The deaths of journalists as well. Pakistan ranks amongst the most dangerous country for journalists in the world.
The ranking, I know about that. The ranking is not really very promising. And still, I would say when I talk to journalists or I read newspaper articles or read the Instagram stories, you can still read and listen to critical voices about topical issues, which, as compared to other countries, I would say are still quite open.
Interesting.
But on the other hand, I would always say, this issue of controlling opinion, it's not only from the legislator's point of view. If you look at with the established media, you look at the media industry. A lot of the media houses are not owned by publishers who from their own background are publishers, but very often they are owned by industrialists.
Yeah, people with money.
Who also have their own business interests. And then obviously they do not want the journalists who maybe write about certain issues or voice a certain opinion. And a lot of the media in the past were also dependent on news ads.
Right.
And then obviously if some of the ads are withdrawn, then the media house will get into financial difficulties.
Interesting.
So whoever is then the main contributor, it might also be like a big business person who regularly gives ads to a newspaper who says, look, if you write so critically about my development project in this or that place, I'm not going to give you that ad anymore. And then obviously there is a business interest in it where the media house would probably say, no, we're not touching that issue. So this is like a big issue where obviously social media can be like a correcting or a different factor as well. And I think there's been like lots of multiple opinions about, but unfortunately also a lot of manipulation from very different sides, and makes it very difficult for a news and a media consumer to actually tell the difference. And you need to be very media literate, specifically also in the social media, when you see like the videos or audios, which nowadays can also be manipulated very easily.
Fake news, right?
Fake news, AI can do wonders, and you really need to be very professional to actually find out what this whole thing is about, that you can actually tell that. We will not find a solution for that because technical development will be faster than any legislation. I think we have to be very aware and very critical and also cross-reference with what we know.
So that's very interesting. I tend to agree with you as well. I think it is not just the government that is clamping down on media opinions, but also the way the companies are owned and the way these companies are funded. Generally, I think the community of journalists has a tradition of freedom, and they do tend to take up anti-authoritarian stance, even when it is not in their interest to do so. But yes, very interesting. So, we're now going to closing down this interview. I'd like to ask you, what do you think about the Pakistani culture? Do you think that the Pakistani culture is a culture that appreciates, loves, and wants to preserve freedom and liberty? And does it respect individuals? Or is that something that will need to come with time, and it is not inherently a part of this country's DNA?
Well, I would say Pakistanis are in general, I mean, I wouldn't say the Pakistani culture because it's an incredibly diverse country.
Indeed.
And I would always say people are very critical towards authorities, and let's say they're very much focused on arranging their own lives within their family background and more within their own societal circles. So I would say, yeah, they take responsibility for themselves and for their local environment, for their village as well. And as everywhere, individual responsibility is not easy.
Right.
So it requires a lot of upbringing also in the family. It requires debate. It requires advocacy. I think in the end, it's very, very beneficial for your family, for your local community as well. Because if you have responsible individuals that see that whatever they do also benefits their family, their village, their environment, it can actually be very much also a part of the society. And I mean, you have people like Allama Iqbal, you have Muhammad Ali Jinnah, you have beautiful traditional thinkers who were very enlightened and very good potential thinkers also advocating for individual responsibility. So I would always say, yes, this is also one part of Pakistani culture as well, which needs a place to thrive and to grow.
One maybe last question would be, I mean, given Germany's past with fascism, and Pakistan also has this tendency to sometimes compromise the minorities. There has been the issue of Hindus migrating en masse out of Pakistan, and at the same time there are concerns about the Shia community, then there are concerns about ethnic minorities as well, like the Kailash in Chitral. This country does have this tendency at the government level also to fall into some form of fascism at times. What would be your advice to the people of Pakistan on how this can be avoided and how we can move towards a more tolerant society that does not, resort to existentially threatening its enemy or its counterpart?
Unfortunately, you have these kinds of exclusions or discrimination of ethnic minorities or other social minorities in all societies. And unfortunately, in Pakistan, that's what a lot of my friends also tell me. There's been a growing polarization over the last years. I think it needs exposure and it needs tolerance. But tolerance means you also need to know the others and respect them. It doesn't mean like saying, okay, this person is there, I just turn my back to them and I ignore them. I think it needs also some knowledge about the different people who are there, because whoever is next to you, who's your neighbor, whatever and whoever you know, you don't perceive that as threatening. I think it's more if there is something or someone you don't know, this is like the big unknown where you feel reserved about it.
Right.
So I think there should be awareness-raising campaigns in the education system as well. And I think everybody should be an ambassador of tolerance in their own environment.
Well, thank you so much. That was, I think, really, it was my pleasure to interview you today. We talked about a lot of things, including the economy, including civil rights, and including matters of policy. The Friedrich Naumann Foundation has had an immense impact on Pakistan, has an immense impact on civil societies functioning in this country as well. And with them gone after 40 years, it's going to be a big hole, a big void that is not easily filled. Pakistani organizations, foundations do not have these kinds of interest areas. Generally, you would find that Pakistani diaspora also mostly contributes towards welfare activities like charity, like giving to orphanages. But then who will do all those public works that are required to improve society as a whole? I wish you good luck in the rest of your endeavors, and wish FNF good luck as well. I think the IAF is a wonderful initiative that really connects international professionals and policy practitioners and gets them to do different, divergent, and new things. Things that make an impact. But it also needs to be said that the Pakistani government does need to have a better attitude towards international organizations that are working in the country and have generally what you might perceive as the good interests of or compatible with the interests of the country. And I think it goes a long way, the work that goes into developing a civil society and organizations that are not government but still contributing towards the public cause. With that said, my name is Sayyid Ali Hassan, and this was Liberty Talk.